All right, so you're thinking about becoming an investment manager, huh? Getting those portfolios in shape, navigating those market waves, sounds pretty exciting, right?
It's definitely a dynamic field.
But before you start shaping anyone's financial future, there's that interview to tackle. And that's what we're diving deep into today, how to absolutely ace that investment manager interview.
It all comes down to preparation. And the good news is we've got some great insights for you straight from RoleCatcher's Career and interview guides for investment managers.
Oh, nice. I love those
We're
guys.
going to break down what the role really involves, the skills you really want to highlight, and then we'll really dive deep into how to nail those interview questions.
Music to my ears. Now, one thing that guides mention is that investment managers do so much more than just pick winning stocks, right?
Yeah,
It's about strategy, analysis, and building that real trust with clients.
absolutely. Think of it as a balancing act.
Yeah.
You're analyzing those market trends, understanding what your clients want to achieve, and then managing risks so their money is really working for them.
It's a lot more than just picking stocks, that's for sure. So let's say you're in the interview, you know the hot seat, and the interviewer leans in and asks, could you walk me through your experience in investment management? It's a classic opener, but how do you make your answers stand out?
This is your chance to tell your story. Don't just fall into listing off past jobs. You want to connect those dots. Did you have a summer internship that sparked your passion for finance? Was there a specific project that really taught you a valuable lesson about risk? You want to weave a narrative that showcases your journey. You know how each step led you here.
So instead of just saying, I was an analyst at company X, you'd say something like,
Exactly. Like instead of just stating the fact, you could say, my interest in investment management really took off during my time as an analyst at Company X. I was immediately drawn to the challenge of researching companies, and I even got to contribute to some really exciting portfolio decisions. It really solidified my desire to pursue this as a career.
ah, I see. You're not just listing a job. You're showing how each experience actually shaped your skills and led you to where you are today. That's really smart. Now, RoleCatcher's AI can actually help you tailor that answer to a specific job description, right?
That's right. So you can actually upload your resume and you can practice different versions of your answer. And the AI will actually analyze your language. It'll flag any jargon that might trip you up and even suggest improvements based on what the job requires.
Whoa, so it's almost like having a personal coach in your pocket.
Exactly.
I love that. Okay, back to the interview. Let's say the interviewer really wants to understand your experience with risk management. So they might ask, how do you approach risk management in your investment strategies? And risk is a big deal in finance, so how do you tackle this question?
You're right. It's a big one. It's about showing them you're not just chasing returns, but that you're responsible. So detail your process, the tools you use, any specific examples of successful risk mitigation. Did you use any quantitative models? Did you identify a potential pitfall in a company's strategy? Don't be afraid to get specific here.
So a strong answer might sound like,
You could say something like, I take a multifaceted approach to risk management. So beyond just the quantitative analysis, I always factor in those qualitative things like regulatory changes or the competence of the management team. For example, in a previous role I noticed. And then you go on to give a really concise, specific example of your process playing out.
oh, that's good. You're speaking their language.
And you're showing you take risks seriously, which is key.
Absolutely. But what if they follow up with something like, tell me about a time you had to navigate a particularly challenging market environment?
That's where that preparation really pays off. Have a specific example ready to go. Highlight a time when the market threw a real curveball and how your actions protected your clients or minimized losses. Again, concrete examples make your skills tangible.
It's all about those real-world examples. Now let's switch gears a bit. Another common question is, how do you stay informed about market trends and developments?
Right. So with this one, you want to show you're proactive, that you're not just relying on yesterday's news. So mention specific publications that you follow, industry events you attend, maybe even thought leaders who influence your thinking.
But how do you answer that without sounding like you're just listing every financial publication you've ever heard of?
Be selective. Instead of just saying, I read the Wall Street Journal, mention a recent article from there that shifted your perspective on a particular market trend. Or talk about a conference you attended where something a speaker said really resonated with you. Show them you're not just consuming information, you're engaging with it critically.
Now that's impressive. And it actually ties back to something we saw in the RoleCatcher Career Guide, that continuous learning is so crucial in this field.
Absolutely. Mentioning specific certifications you're pursuing or professional development courses you've completed really demonstrates your commitment to staying ahead of the curve. And you know what? RoleCatcher's AI can even analyze your resume and suggest relevant certifications based on your experience and what you want to achieve.
No way. So it's like having a personalized career advisor right there on your phone. That's incredible.
It's a game changer. And speaking of game changers, let's tackle another question that often trips candidates up. Can you describe your experience with portfolio management software? Now, this question about software can feel a bit intimidating, especially if you haven't actually used certain programs in a professional setting.
Yeah, I can see that.
But don't worry, you can still demonstrate that you understand the tech and that you're eager to learn.
So how would you approach this? Say, if you're earlier in your career and you haven't had all those hands-on experiences yet.
I'd start by researching, those common portfolio management software used across the industry, get familiar with their key features. You can even often find demo versions online or watch tutorial videos.
Oh, that's smart, so you can get a feel for how it works.
Exactly. That way you can speak intelligently about the software, even without having that direct work experience quite yet.
So it's turning that potential weakness into a chance to really show your initiative.
That's the idea. You could say something like, while my experience with software name is from personal exploration, I am familiar with its. And then you could mention specific features and how they actually relate back to investment management.
I love that. Now, if you have used that kind of software before, this is where you really get to shine.
Absolutely.
You can dive into the specifics, the modules you've mastered, the reports you've generated, any results you achieved using those tools.
Exactly. And this is where RoleCatcher's AI can be so helpful. You can describe your experience, and the AI will actually analyze your language to make sure you're highlighting those skills that are most relevant to the job you want.
Oh, so it's like a personal editor for your interview skills.
That's a great way to put it.
Okay, let's keep this going. Another question might be, how do you evaluate potential investments? This one seems pretty open-ended.
It is, and that's intentional. They want to get a sense of your thought process. So do you start by digging into a company's financials? Do you analyze market trends? It's all about showcasing your analytical framework.
So it's not enough to just say, it looked profitable.
Definitely not. You want to mention specific methods you use, like things like discounted cash flow analysis or comparable company analysis. But don't just recite the definition, actually explain how you've used these methods in the past.
Oh, I see. So you're showing them you can walk the walk, not just talk the talk.
Exactly. And once again, RoleCatcher's AI can really help here. You can practice answering these kinds of questions, and the AI will give you feedback on whether your explanation is clear, concise, and right for the seniority of the role.
It's like having a secret weapon in your interview prep arsenal. I love it. Now, let's talk about a really crucial aspect that the RoleCatcher Guide highlights, balancing risk and return. It feels like a core concept for any investment manager.
It really is fundamental. Every investment has that trade-off. So they want to see that you get it, you understand that balance, and you have a structured approach to managing it.
How do you actually articulate that well in an interview?
Well, you could start by acknowledging that there's no one-size-fits-all answer. The right balance depends on things like the client's risk tolerance, their investment goals, their time frame, all of that. Then you can outline your process for figuring out that risk tolerance and then how you align your investment strategy to match.
So it's all about that customization, tailoring your approach to each individual client and their needs.
Exactly. You could say something like, I take a client-centric approach to risk management. So I start by really understanding their objectives, their risk appetite, their time horizon. From there, I build a diversified portfolio that aligns with all those factors, aiming to mitigate those potential downsides as much as possible.
Diversification, another golden rule of investing, right?
Absolutely. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. You can even mention different diversification strategies like investing across asset classes, sectors, geographic regions, that kind of thing. It really shows a deeper understanding of the principles behind it.
Okay, this is gold. Now, before we move on, I want to touch on something else that's super important, organization and time management. Because investment managers, you're juggling a lot.
It's a juggling act for sure, and something interviewers often ask about directly. How do you stay organized and manage your time effectively?
Yeah, that's a big question. Where do you even begin?
Get specific. Do you love using to-do lists? Do you use project management software? Do you have a color-coded calendar system? Whatever your method, the key is to show how it translates into actual results.
So instead of just saying, I'm organized, you'd say.
You could say, I'm a big believer in using project management software to stay on top of my deadlines and track my progress. In my previous role, this system helped me manage multiple client portfolios at the same time and do it well.
Ah, you're connecting those skills directly to real-world success. That's so good.
Exactly. And you know what? This is another area where RoleCatcher can give you a leg up. Their AI can actually analyze how you're talking about this, making sure you're highlighting those organizational skills that are most valued in these roles.
It's like having a personal brand strategist for your interview. Okay, let's tackle another really common question. Can you describe your experience with asset allocation? Now, this one feels right up your alley.
It does, doesn't it? So when you're in that interview, you really want to demonstrate a deep understanding of those asset allocation principles and how you actually apply them. So maybe start by just outlining your general approach.
Okay, so like, what's your philosophy?
Exactly. So do you lean towards that strategic asset allocation?
Hmm.
Like setting target allocations based on those long-term market assumptions?
Right, got it.
Or do you prefer that more tactical approach, where you're making adjustments as you go based on those shorter-term market views?
And it's okay to prefer one over the other, right? It's more about being able to explain your reasoning and how it all connects back to your investment philosophy.
Exactly. You want to show you've put thought into it. You could say, I typically favor a strategic asset allocation approach because, personally, I believe those long-term market trends tend to be a bit more predictable than those short-term fluctuations. However, and this is important, I also recognize how important it is to incorporate those tactical adjustments when the market calls for it.
That makes sense. That's a really balanced response. And of course, like with everything else we've talked about, always be ready to back it all up with those real-world examples, like how have you actually managed this in your past roles?
Exactly. Always be ready with those stories. Now, to really showcase that expertise, be prepared to go a little deeper into specific asset classes. For example, they might ask, can you describe your experience with fixed income investments?
So this is where they're really trying to gauge your knowledge about things like bonds, treasuries, all of those instruments that provide that steady income, right?
Exactly. And even if your main focus hasn't been solely on fixed income, you should still have a solid understanding of how these instruments work, their role in a diversified portfolio, and, of course, those key factors that can impact their performance. Think things like changes in interest rates.
So a strong answer here would include your experience analyzing and selecting those fixed income securities, maybe even touching upon different fixed income strategies that you've used.
Exactly. For instance, you could say, I've always viewed fixed income investments as a really crucial component of a well-diversified portfolio. And my experience includes things like analyzing and selecting a range of fixed income securities, everything from government bonds to corporate debt. I've also implemented different fixed income strategies like laddering maturities, which helps manage that interest rate risk.
Okay, see now that answer just oozes confidence and expertise.
Yeah.
Wow, we have covered so much ground today, from those really broad, experience-based questions to those much more technical ones, but things like risk management and asset allocation. Honestly, it feels like RoleCatcher's guides really gave us a fantastic roadmap for prepping for this interview.
I agree. They're really comprehensive. And let's not forget about their AI tools, which we've talked about. Imagine getting that real-time feedback on your answers. It's like having that extra reassurance. You're highlighting those right skills and using the language that really resonates.
I know, it's like having that personal interview coach right there in your pocket. So if you're serious about landing that investment manager job, RoleCatcher can really give you a leg up.
I think that's a great place to wrap up.
It is. All right, so there you have it, everyone, our deep dive into how to conquer that investment manager interview. Remember, you've got the skills, you've got the knowledge, and with a little boost from those amazing resources like RoleCatcher, you'll be more than ready to impress. Best of luck out there.